Welcome to Mad About Money. I'm Maddy Alexander-Grout, and this is the podcast where we talk to interesting people all about their interesting stories. I'm here with the lovely Amie Barlow, who is a coach for professional career-driven women to help them to drive forward in whatever it is that they're doing, helping them to focus on not burning out, dealing with their neurodivergence, fitness, nutrition, all sorts, but also personal brand. Amie, so lovely to have you on. I love your stuff on Instagram. I follow you all the time. In fact, you're mainly the person that follows that like comes up in my feed like all the time.
Oh, I love that. That's great with how visible Instagram can be sometimes.
I know. I feel like I'm possibly a stalker, but like it's do you know what when you really relate to somebody and you think, yeah, I know that I need to be speaking to this person. Like you were one of those people that I just thought, yes, love your energy, love your vibe. So it's great to have you on. So Amie, tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you for having me, Maddie. It's an absolute
So
pleasure.
welcome.
And yeah, so I guess a little bit about me. So, as some of you may or may not know, I'm sure you don't because you don't know who I am until you've listened to Maddie's podcast. You
But
may do.
they will know. They will.
They will know. So, a little bit about me. I've had ADHD pretty much my whole life. So, I got diagnosed when I was 11. So, it was
Oh wow.
a bit of a different situation for me, but I can definitely say that even though I've had multiple people say getting diagnosed at 11 is must have been amazing because you got a head start, it definitely wasn't like that because
No.
I'm 30 now and it was definitely back then not something to be, aware. There wasn't a lot of awareness around it.
No, especially not for girls.
Exactly. So I spent a lot of my life feeling a bit like I didn't really understand why I was the way I was. The classic felt I was different and all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started to sort of, get into performing quite young and I followed on my passion for that into my later years. I studied dance at university and then I went on to do some various jobs in the West End when I was older
Oh wow.
as well, whilst working in a pub to support myself, the classic. And then that kind of like brought me on to where I was in the fitness industry. And I think the biggest thing to kind of, say is that I know that a lot of you listening will have, especially when you're listening to Maddie's podcast about money and how you've got impulsivity issues with money. My story was very different. My story was very much related to how I had an addiction to exercise and how that was
Wow.
actually enabling me to channel this, low self-worth, low self-esteem, and this impulsive side to me with the exercise, which has kind of led me to what I do now.
That's really interesting. So what is your money story? How did money show up for you throughout, your early years?
Wow, this is so, it's really funny that we're kind of connecting now because I would definitely say that all I can say is that the one word that comes to mind about my money story up until this year was avoidance.
Mm.
Having dyscalculia, is it? Or
Dyscalculia, like Julia.
dyscalculia, lovely. Having dyscalculia, I never really understood money. I
Mm.
got overwhelmed with it very easily. I came from a background, a family. My parents were, they provided for me. They put me through private education because they thought that was going to help with my ADHD. But it's been very much a lot of, and this is something I'm still exploring, by the way. Like I don't
Yeah.
entirely know, but it's been very much you have to go through pain to be wealthy. And
Mm.
because of that, I definitely am still exploring as well how I have a bit of workaholism. I
Oh
channel,
God. I'm with you there, 100%.
yeah, it's a slippery slope, and I think yeah. So I would say my money story was kind of that, and also a little bit of not really understanding the value of it to the point where I was never taught how to invest. I was never taught how
Mm.
to do tax, all of these kind of things. So it was getting to a point where I think I had a bit of a there was always a bit of scarcity to the situation where I would never
Yeah.
overspend. But there was also a bit of, oh, I can go out and buy myself a t-shirt, but I don't know whether I've got enough for my tax. So it was a bit of an issue with the prioritization of it, really.
Yeah, that's, I mean, and that's a big thing for ADHDers, people who have got dyscalculia. Also as well, kind of the sort of the not prioritizing and not knowing where to focus, can actually be an autism spectrum disorder thing as well. Um,
This is something I'm exploring as well.
hmm. So yeah, I mean, I very much so I did my neurodiversity in the workplace training about 3 months ago, and I went in knowing that I had ADHD, not and dyslexia. So I got diagnosed with dyslexia when I was 15, 16. Like I was just on the way out of school. I mean, it wasn't particularly helpful at that point, but it
Yeah.
was good when I got to college because I got a free laptop, and that was about all they did for me. I'm not sure how that really helped, but I got the free laptop, and that kind of at least got me a bit aware of it. And I think the problem that we really face as neurodivergents is not necessarily like the conditions themselves, because we can kind of come to terms with it, but it's the how does it show up in all areas of our lives that we don't necessarily know. And if we're not aware, how do we know? And this is the thing. So now, like now I know more about all of the other neurodivergent conditions, I can work out where money shows up for those people and how it shows up. So it's quite interesting, and task prioritization in anything is hard. And with the with the workaholic thing, I think because we're so passionate about what we do and we get so much dopamine from it, that's why we're workaholics.
Yeah, and I think you're so right, Maddie. And I think as well with that, the passion, I think sometimes what I've definitely found myself doing is that it's really interesting because I used to have like an interest in um what do you call it, like perception on what 9 till 5 people do. So I used
Yeah.
to think that people would be productive from 9 till 5, and I'd be like, oh my God. And it's not the case. Like I've never been in a
Yeah.
corporate setting, but my
Oh,
partner, yeah, I've never stepped foot in an office ever, right? I've always been in the creative arts or fitness space.
nice. Yeah. And I
Um,
think that's a really good thing because office
uh,
environments are not always geared towards neurodivergent people, having been
exactly.
there for a long time.
Wow. Yeah, my partner actually said to me, he was like, Amie, you're deluded if you think that people are actually productive from 9 until 5. But I think I don't know whether it is like a kind of a fear setting in or like a control thing, but I definitely find for me that even though I do everything under the sun, I don't take medication, but I do everything under the sun to try my best to optimize my concentration. And we know
Mm,
that some days it just doesn't work like that. So I
yeah.
think I almost like I will instead of being like, okay, let's just try again tomorrow, I will sit at my desk until I try and make myself do the things that I need to do. And then it's like
Mm.
10 p.m. at night and they're still not done. And then I'll call it a day, as opposed to being like, look, Amie, give yourself the grace.
Yeah, right.
That's the overworking part for me that I find can be quite toxic.
I think it's the never-ending to-do list, isn't it? I've started to just, prioritize in a slightly different way. So,
Okay.
in the mornings, I'm like, right, what's going to make me money? And that's it. That's my priority. What's going to make me money? That's the only thing that I think about. And if it doesn't make me money, I don't do it and I farm it out to somebody else. Now, I'm very, very, very lucky that I've got the joy that is Sophie. So Sophie is like my right hand. She's not my right hand woman. Vix would be really sad if I said Sophie was my right hand woman. Vix is my business partner. Sophie is my lifeline. But Sophie does all my admin and all the crap that I can't be asked to do. And it's not that I can't be asked to do, I just don't want to do it. Like, I think having ADHD or any neurodivergent condition, especially as a business owner, you have to understand what your strengths are. And I know for me that my strengths are being the face of the business, showing up, selling, making the money. Anything else, I'm like, nope. I mean, even business accounts, like my accountant is the most supportive person in the world. Shout out to Mahmood, like he is a legend. I hate numbers, the best accountant ever. Now he understands my ADHD brain. And when he asks me for something, he knows he's going to have to ask me about 17 times before I give it to him. But he is so supportive on that. And if he doesn't get it after the 17th time of asking, he's like, I'll just do it for you.
Yeah.
Like, and he's amazing. But like, it's taken me years to understand what I'm good at and where I need to focus. And those crappy tasks that I sit there thinking, I don't want to do these,
Mhm.
like, I just try and give them to other people. Now, Sophie was off a couple of weeks ago, and I was just like, oh, I've started taking my ADHD meds. I've got so much to do. So I started doing it, and my God, I finished tasks.
That's
It was the
amazing.
weirdest thing I've ever done. I'm like, I've just knocked out a whole to-do list in the morning and I've been focused, I've been prioritizing. I haven't even looked at TikTok. What is wrong with me? Where has Maddy gone? Like, but it's weird, and I'm really interested in, like, because have you ever done the medication stuff, or was it just always managed your way?
So I briefly tried them back in 20, what year would it be? Like 2019.
So you'd have been
But
like 20-ish or so. No, younger than that.
no, so I was 2019, that was 4 years ago. Well, 5 years. No,
Oh,
that's
God,
10 years.
that is
No,
10 years ago.
2020. No,
Hang on, where are we?
21,
Oh no,
22,
no, that is no, 5 years
5
ago.
years. Yeah. Yeah, so
Hello, Maddie, the money specialist who can't count.
I was 25. I was 25 at the time, but yeah, so I briefly tried them, but I have a heart condition,
Oh,
so I
bless
have
you.
to be careful. Thank you. Yeah, it's okay. It's kind of like I had a surgery on it
Oh,
when I was 13, so years ago, but
yeah.
I have to be careful with how my heart rate increases, and I just didn't find it useful because I felt like, and this is just my experience by the way, like anybody that takes them, I think good on you, it's amazing, like
You've got to do what works for you though.
exactly. And I think for me, I definitely found that I didn't like the fact that I was using an external thing to support me, because I was like, where
Yeah.
is this? And I think about this a lot in life because I've come from a family that have been very heavy on let's use medication for everything. And
Mm.
I think there is trauma there. And I think because of that, I was like, no, I want to try and manage my symptoms holistically, because if I can do that, then I don't ever have to worry about what if this dosage has to be increased? What happens when I've got the maximum dosage and
What happens if you can't get access to the meds, like so many people, and that was one of my fears starting. I was just like, what happens if I start relying on this thing and then it disappears, and then all of a sudden I'm like my crazy messed up self again. Like, it is scary.
Right. No, it is. And I think, like I said, it has its place, but I do think that as well, there are so many things that can be done to support you in other ways too.
Yeah, let's talk about those then. So from a fitness and well-being
Mhm.
perspective,
Mhm.
um, how do you manage that? Do you take any supplements or?
Yes, so I take supplements, and again, like this is kind of something that I'm still learning. So
Mm,
I'm working with a nutritionist at the moment as well. She's amazing. Her
nice.
name's Sarah Osborne. Shout out if anybody's listening. She's great. And we're looking at doing a co-collaboration moving forwards as well. And I think, it was like understanding that some supplements that I was taking actually potentially weren't benefiting me as much as I thought because they're
I
not.
think I think she's messaged me in the last week. I
Ah,
like I recognize that name, and I'm like, yes, she has. So I'm going to be collaborating with her as well
love that.
for my for
Amazing.
my for my new membership. So
Okay.
yeah, exciting stuff. So yeah.
That's
Anyway,
all.
I interrupted you. I'm sorry. Typical
That's
ADHD there.
okay. Don't worry.
I just went, oh, that's a name I know.
Got to itch the scratch. Yeah, so she's been working with me on my personal nutrition, and I was taking certain things like prebiotics, probiotics, those kind of things. She was like,
Mm,
hold on a minute here. She said, like, that's great because, 60% of the population don't even entertain that. But then you're thinking, what if the type of probiotics and prebiotics you are taking aren't actually needed for the type of thing that's lacking in your gut? So
yeah.
I've now been exploring that, like, because I was really low. I had my iron levels, my ferritin levels tested, and they came back really low. And
Mm,
then we tested them again, and they're fine now. So she's like, you don't really need to take iron. anymore. You can if you want.
Because you can
So
have too much iron, can't you? And that can be bad as well. So
yeah, I'm not too sure on the studies of that, but I mean that's good to know.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that I read that somewhere that you can have too much
Ah,
iron. So if your iron levels are higher and you're taking iron, it can be dangerous. I might be making that up though. So I'm not a doctor, anybody who's listening. So don't quote me on that.
but yeah, so the supplements that I take currently, lion's mane for the ADHD, we take lion's mane, reishi mushroom. I take those, like they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And then also I do take the Get Dopa supplements as well, which is
Yeah. So let's talk about that. What does Get Dopa do?
so they're a nootropic. So they'll be like a form of stimulant. So they will help, like nootropics are really good to tap into like certain parts of your brain to stimulate cognitive function and focus,
Mm,
energy as well. Because I'm really, really caffeine sensitive too. So
same. Yeah.
yeah, so
And I think that's where the headaches are coming from the meds. Like, essentially it's like speed, really. So yeah, it's the
that's
come down.
yeah, the come down
Great.
feeling sick, not having an appetite, all of that. And like
Yeah.
they were the side effects that I wasn't entirely enjoying.
I'm all for the no appetite, I'm not gonna lie. Like I've lost like 3.5 kilos in a week and a half. I'm like, yes, this is great. And now I'm like, do I want to be on it for the weight loss benefits or for the brain? I'm like, I don't know.
I mean, if it works, then that's great. And as long as you're having like a balanced diet as a result of that too, then
Yeah,
sure.
sort of. Yeah, we'll go with yeah. I mean, like I've been living on, and this is not Stephen Bartlett's podcast. Like, I mean, we have been likened to it before, but I have been living on Huel, which is not necessarily the. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, it tastes like crap. But I know that I need the nutrients, and when I don't want to eat, it sort of works for me at the moment. So I don't have a discount code, so no one ask. I'm not promoting them. This is not an advert. But yeah, it's just been what's working for me for the last couple of weeks. But it's fucking expensive. So
Mean, yeah, like obviously, if that works for you, that's great. I think Sarah, if you do have a chance to speak to Sarah, she may have a different view on
I'm gonna get her on the podcast. I've already asked her, so it's gonna
yeah, please
happen.
do.
Well, we'll definitely. In fact, it will probably be next week. So yeah, we'll definitely get Sarah on for sure.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, Lions. I think there's a lot of kind of bad rap for like influencers and people who have got big followings promoting stuff like Lion's Mane. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I love it. I don't like the powder. I don't like that. I'm a sensory person. Like for me, it's that powdery thing. So I've got the gummies, which
Oh,
like they are really good and they taste really delicious. And I also take these ones as well, the apple cider vinegar ones.
uh-huh.
I've also got one for neutralizing the pH of your food as well. God knows what that's all about, but
Here we are. Here we are. If it works,
here
it
you
works.
are. Here you are. Like,
If it
so
works,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I do take some. I try. And
Yeah.
I've also got because I've got the caffeine sensitivity as well. I use energy bites if I'm feeling low on energy. Gives you the caffeine, but without like the almost like the caffeine symptoms.
Yeah.
So they're quite useful. But anyway, that was another story. So how did you decide then to go from like the West End and like the performing side to go into like the fitness stuff?
So I think it was kind of a bit of it's really odd because even though, there is ADHD and suspected autism, there's always been kind of an element of me kind of knowing what's going to happen, like 5 steps ahead.
Yeah.
Being like a really intuitive person, and like I was always, my common sense has always been quite strong, even though my decisions have not necessarily benefited me at the time.
Oh, mine's terrible.
We know where we're going, which is the main thing. But I think with my sort of decision making, it was kind of like, wow, I didn't enjoy working in the cow in Stratford.
Mm,
Working as a waitress, I was like, this is not going to be my reality. And a group of girls that I was living with at the time, that were also performers were working in various different fitness studios around London. Some of them were working in like the front of house, reception area. Some of them were doing classes, some of them were personal training, and they were all doing it. And I was just like, okay, well, if they can do it, I can do it.
Mm.
So I just started to kind of apply for places. And then there was an ad that came up for a fitness studio called Surge. And it was really funny looking back, because if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't have been where I am today.
Mm.
But they were they did, I don't know if you've ever heard of like EMS.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so they were like an EMS studio, so they did electrical stimulation on muscles.
Mm.
And you didn't need to be a personal trainer to be qualified for the job. You just needed to do your EMS qualification. So I went for the interview, and it was a brand new studio, and they were like, yeah, we're really happy to have you. And then I was there, and then it just kind of like, you know, all kind of went from there. But there was lots of ups and downs on that journey. I was employed with Surge, and I was a terrible employee. Like, I just fought against so much. Like, I enjoyed it to some degree, but some other degrees I was like, no, I knew I wanted more for myself. So I started to kind
Yeah.
of my own thing on the side of doing that. And then I was sort of building up my Instagram following at the time. I was a fitness influencer, and then a company contacted me, and they were like, do you want to do your personal training qualification? We'll gift you it. You just have to,
Wow.
yeah. So I had that opportunity, and then I started working in the studio that they were actually doing the training out of. So the actual company were like, we really want you to come work for us. And this was going back in probably around the 2019 mark, maybe
Which we've
20
already established was about 6 years ago, 5 years ago. We're all good.
5 years ago, 6 years, yeah. So around the COVID time, I'd say.
Oh, yeah.
Or just no, actually, probably a year before that, 2 years before that, and then that was in central London. So,
Mm.
I was working right next to the Gherkin. I was on a wage, I think, that was paying me £900 a month. I was traveling at like 5 a.m. in the morning to go and do classes there, and I did not enjoy it at all. So I quit. And
Mm.
I quit. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And at the time, I remember my mum saying, how much money do you have in your account? And I was like, I've got like 1,200 in my account. She was like, you'll be fine. That's good. You've got enough to live off. And I just somehow made it work. And then I started to do a few fitness classes at F45. I don't know if you've ever heard of them
No,
before.
I don't think so.
They're an Australian fitness company, but a friend of mine who was an influencer had like a discount code for like this app that you could book in classes for them through. So I was like, I'm gonna go and do a few classes there. And then I ended up getting a job there. And then that was kind of, yeah, that was kind of how it all came about. Right?
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
So moving forward to now, I mean, we've got, I think, quite similar stories. We've kind of gone down the influencer route in our own things. We're very much the go-to experts in our niche, but now we're looking to help other people to do the same. So tell me a bit about what you're doing there.
Yeah, so I think, it's been a really transformative 2 years for me, and I'm probably at the scariest point of that right now. But I think, as we spoke about earlier, so my driver, I always knew that just being a PT, just being a fitness coach was never, it's really hard when you know that your mission is bigger than that. And
Yes, yeah,
I knew deep down that I wanted to help people in other ways, but at the time I wasn't even addressing the fact that my ADHD was a reasoning for a lot of things in my life. So I
yeah,
wasn't really like, I knew I had it. So that was a step in the right direction that a lot of people didn't have. But then when I got in a relationship with my current partner, he was like, oh, Amie, like, is this because of your ADHD? And we started to do a lot of research together about it. And then that was when last year I was like, okay, I want to be helping people in the same, that went through the same journey that I did, where
yeah,
there's so many girls out there that are performers that have had disorders in different ways, and been pushed to think that they have to overachieve all of their lives, and their
mm,
whole worth is attached to their performance. And and also knowing that because you have ADHD, you're actually not able to facilitate as much of an intense exercise regime as you think you do. And
yeah,
having to come to all of this realization was my driver. But then, as I said, you know, being just an ADHD fitness coach last year again wasn't lighting me up. It wasn't giving me that, like, this is
Joy.
this is my joy, like, because I was
Yeah.
just giving people fitness plans and being like, oh, have you done your 10 press ups? Like, and I was like, this is not what I want to do. So then,
Yeah.
you know, completely pivoting out of that now and being like, well, yes, I am still very knowledgeable in that field and I have a lot of experience to give to people, but you know, to help women actually be able to move forwards in their careers in general. And like, because I think what happens is, if you're in an environment where you get swept up, especially in an entrepreneurial environment where you get swept up in the hustle grind culture,
Yeah.
and when we are so impressionable, when we have a neurodiversity, we think that that's how we need to work to get results. And I think for us, it's so important to understand that that's not the way that we are able to work. And I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think that it's an interesting one because I think I will be honest with you, and this is something that I'm still coming to terms with now, and this is why I'm well at the moment, is because there's still that like cycle for me of acceptance, going at a slower pace, fuck, scarcity, let's get
Yeah.
rolling again. So I'm still working on that myself, but
It's the perpetual burnout situation, isn't it? Where like you hustle, hustle, hustle because you feel like you're on a roll, you're finally getting somewhere, you're all good. And then it's like, oh, brick wall. I always describe myself as like the Duracell bunny. Like I am the fastest person, I've got the most energy, I'm really hyper, like I'm always pushing forward until that day where my battery runs out. And then I am broken for like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes longer. And we have to be so aware of that cycle. Burnout's a horrible thing, really is.
it's tough and it's hard as well because even though I'm an advocate for I've worked through my fitness addiction and now my self-worth is no longer attached to that. I don't beast my body every single day to get results. I'm
Mm,
still very consistent with my training and that's a value that I hold highly. But so I've worked through that and I've worked through so many other areas. I'm working through the money mindset stuff, but the self-worth to the business, like you know, the capacity in which we're able to work. I'm trying to learn to not be like that's the only way it is and trying to catch that burnout before it's happened, which is hard sometimes.
yes. Yeah. And I don't think enough people talk about burnout and the realness of it. I think people kind of like go, oh yeah, I'm a bit burned out. But they
Mm.
don't really take the time to kind of listen to their body and focus on the self-care element. And I think it's so important.
It's
Really
really,
is.
and you know what's really interesting because I literally last night actually funnily enough I was sat at the kitchen table and I just had a meltdown. I just was
Mm.
hysterically crying and
Oh,
my
bless you.
partner was like, you know, what, because I had a therapy session the other day and my therapist, she's great. I do weekly hypnotherapy sessions and we ended up just talking for the hour and she was like, Amie, I'm actually like, obviously I can't advise or say, you know, things directly
Yeah.
to you because it's a code of conduct. But she was like, I'm actually worried about you because I am worried that you don't know when to stop and to slow down. And she highlighted to me that like when we talk about self-care, because I said to her, I was
Mm.
like, I don't know what you mean. I said, I get my hair done, my nails are always on point. I look after myself, I shave my legs. And she was like, that's not
You shave your legs? I haven't done that for about a year. Like,
I mean,
no,
just
that's a
about.
lie. That is a
They're
lie.
quite pretty.
It's been a week. It's been about a week.
That's all right. A week's
I'm
fine.
not like a dirty, hairy monster. Like, I
I
mean, like,
sometimes feel that way, but yeah.
but for me, do you know what it is? It's actually remembering that I need to do it.
Yes,
It's
that's
it's
so
that
true.
thing. It's like I'm in the shower, I'm washing my hair, I'm doing my thing, and then I get out and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, I haven't done my legs. Like, oh, like, and it's actually remembering to do the self-care thing.
So
Um,
true. So
and like, I mean, everything self-care related. Like it's remembering, and then it's that task paralysis of actually like, I've got to shave my legs, but I haven't done it for so long that like it's gonna break the razor, and then I'm just like, it's overthinking.
yeah,
Sorry, guys, if anyone's listened to this, that's probably a bit gross. But and my husband is the first person to come and say to me, "You need to do that now because they're really hairy."
we love an honest partner. We love an honest partner.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so the self-care thing I think ultimately is, you know, it's really interesting because things that I class as self-care aren't necessarily things that are like my therapist was like, you need to do more things that connect your inner child, and
Mm,
that's self-care that we often don't do when we, because like otherwise, yeah, shaving your legs is self-care, getting your hair done, but they're just tasks that you're ticking off.
they
um
are.
so I'm trying to sort of explore how I can incorporate dance back into my current reality, because
Nice.
that's what gives me joy and always has done since I was a child.
I love dancing. I actually, little known fact about me, I did dancing as well when I was a child. So I did
Ah,
ballet, tap, modern, and ballroom. I have actually got, and this is like very weird, I've got loads of ballroom dancing trophies. Who
fantastic.
knew?
I
But I never actually, I tell you what, I didn't like ballroom dancing. And the reason I didn't like ballroom dancing, because the guy who I used to dance with had the most stinky BO I've ever like encountered. And when you're short and you're at armpit level, like I just remember you like trying to focus on dancing and not being able to do it because I'd be like, "Mm." So I don't know how I managed to get loads of trophies, but I did it for about 6 years and it's still the same guy every time. And I'm like, oh, the stink of him. Like it was horrible. Um,
dedication to the VO.
yeah, now I realize that actually because of my neurodivergence, that was the only thing I could think about when I was doing it. And I didn't realize that not everybody had that. I mean, yeah, sure, everybody could smell it, and they might have gone, oh, he smells a bit, and not really focused about it too much. But I was like, no, this is all I can think about. It's horrible. And I started like a few years ago when I did my wedding, like it was some form of chore. When I got married, I did Clubbercise, which was amazing. Like proper dopamine tunes, glow sticks in the dark so no one saw you, and I loved it. And then
That's so
my lady who did it moved somewhere else, and there wasn't a class near me, so I stopped doing it, and I miss it so much. Like
where are you based?
Southampton,
Okay. I was gonna say because there are a few places in London, but obviously that's
probably a little bit
a
far
little
to
bit
travel
far.
for a class, maybe. Like, I do go to London a lot, to be fair, but yeah, it's hard. It is finding that joy and getting your dopamine from something that isn't work as well, I think. Because I've just started painting again.
There we go.
Um
That's
I
so
and I love it. Like I paint very colourful, bright, mainly rainbow style pictures that probably nobody would ever look at. But for me, it's just about putting that color down. It's mental health, it's self-care, it's finding time to do something that isn't working my ass off all the time. It's
yeah.
important.
And I think that's exactly it. And I think, so going back to the whole burnout thing, I think I don't, learning that there are things that you need to do to make your soul feel good as well. And like
Yes.
that comes into like the self-love thing. And that's another thing that I'm kind of exploring right now, because I I've realized how much I just don't love myself. And I thought I
Mm.
did. I thought I did. But things that I was doing as an act of self-love have actually been for everybody else, not for me.
And that's such an important realization. It really is. And I think we get so many negative messages as children who are different, who are neurodivergent. We put so much pressure on ourselves to try and achieve because we are those people who are left out. And actually growing and loving yourself is a lot harder than it seems, especially when we've got all of this press and like the negativity around ADHD. It's like ADHD doesn't exist. ADHD is for naughty people. ADHD is an excuse for bad behavior and all this crap. And we're like, but we're just here trying to actually get on with our lives and it's really fucking difficult.
Well, I think the reality of that as well, Maddie, is that something I was going to say earlier is, and I know that I don't want to put a stigma around it, but
Mm,
we can't ignore the fact that it's a disability. And
exactly.
if you saw somebody in a wheelchair walking like down the road and you were like, just get on with it, you're just attention seeking, like
Yeah.
feel like that you are such a messed up person. So I think that's something that I'm finding hard to deal with, because I'm like fully functioning, like nobody would know any different. People look at me from
Mm,
back home and they're like, oh my God, Amie is absolutely smashing it. But I have to also realize that I have a disability and I have to attend to that as well.
yeah. It's and because people can't see it, it's like if you can't see something, it's not real. I've got an autoimmune disease. all of the
That's
neurodivergent conditions, bar Tourette's. I'm just a bit sweary, which is actually a common misconception. People with Tourette's actually are not all of them swear. But it's one of those things where, like, the constant judgment and stigma and people doubting you, which makes you doubt yourself, and then you can't find that love. And we're also very, very guilty of negative talking to ourselves.
definitely. And I think that comes back to the whole self-love thing. Like I am so like if I was to really, really home in on how I am with myself, like when I talk to myself, like I'm sometimes so horrible and I like talk and I'm like, whoa, like when you look back and you like have, an outsider's view on the situation, you're like, oh my God, like you are literally being the meanest person to yourself. Nobody else is being that mean to you.
Yeah. And it's I'm terrible at managing my money. I'm terrible at running my business. Everybody else is smashing it and I'm here flailing. And that's such a common ADHD, neurodivergent kind of way of thinking because we are so negative to ourselves. And I think we really need to start changing that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think when you say about I'm terrible to manage my money, like I definitely, that's not something that's come easy to me. And like in the last
Mm,
sort of year, I've made some mistakes that have really like cost me some, tricky situations and having to like I'm willing to learn. Like I'm investing more than ever in my education around money, but
yeah,
then almost taking that negative, oh, this is so hard, Amie, this doesn't come naturally to you, this should come naturally to you, and just that acceptance that, okay, this doesn't come naturally, this isn't easy for me, but I'm willing, it doesn't mean that I'm failing at it.
absolutely. And I think a common misconception with money is that you have to budget in the way that all of the influencers tell you to do it. And that is why Mad About Money app exists, because we teach people to think differently about money. It's not about going and following Dave Ramsey and doing what he says. Like, it's all about working out what's best for you, what's best for your brain, and how to manage it in your own way. Because we all do things differently, neurodivergent or not neurodivergent, we all have different brains. And this is the thing, what works for one person doesn't always work for another. And that's why you need to think about what is best for you, and make your budget less restrictive. But also don't hold on to that cash, don't overbuy things. Make sure that there is a conscious buying decision behind it. And that's what I will always say. Amie, what's next for you?
What is next for me? So I guess at the moment we're in the kind of like the preliminary stages of obviously rebuilding my course or my program. So that's kind of what's happening at the moment. And then I think just moving on from that, I have every intention of sort of building my team over the next couple of months so that I've got
Nice.
I'm sort of working on two models at the moment. We're going to have like a premium offer where, I work very closely with clients on a one-to-one basis. They have a fitness professional. So I've got an amazing woman that I've done previous work with called Susie that's going to come on board and she's going to help from the fitness side of things. I've got obviously Sarah and a couple of other people
Yeah,
as well. So my plan is to kind of build that and then also then build the course so that that can just be repeatable to be accessible to other people as well, and just really
amazing.
trying to grow. I've got a YouTube channel up and running. I will be getting a podcast up and running at some point as well. So yeah, I think that's kind of where it is, and then the journey is just to really try and scale the income, to be honest, in the next
Yes.
the 11K plus months are coming, and it's just really hard to kind of think about that right now.
Yeah. And they will come. I'm always of the mentality that if you believe it will happen, it will happen.
Oh, 100%.
And it has done for me. It's been a slow burn. I just had my first 20 grand month and I'm like, oh my God, I've never had that before. It's so exciting. And then next month it'll probably be back to like the 5, 6 kind of mark. But it is that thing, like believe it, see it, manifest it, it will work. And I see you everywhere. Like you are literally the person in my Instagram feed. So on that note, where can people find you?
So you guys can find me on Instagram, probably my main handle. So it is Amie Be Fit at the moment. Whether that will change in the future, who knows? But yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. That's AMIE and then B and then fit. with an underscore. I'm sure Maddy will share it in the
I
show
will.
notes.
It'll be in the show notes for all
Yeah.
the, yeah, it'll be there.
Yeah, and then that's pretty much it. That's probably like my main place, and then you can get all of my details then on the link tree in my bio.
Amazing. And Amy's going to hopefully be coming and doing some bits in my new membership as well. If you haven't heard about it, Invisible to Influential, the membership, you can check it out in my bio. Also, as well, if you are listening to this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review, give us a follow, hit that subscribe button, because that's what helps other people to find the podcast. I'm Maddy, and if you haven't heard of me before, then I'm not sure why you're listening to this podcast, but go and find me, Mad About Money Official on TikTok and Maddy Alexander-Grout on LinkedIn. We will see you guys next time. Thank you, Amie, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.